expressed here are not supported by and do not reflect those of the Evening Rush Network. Viewers' discretion is advised.
We are another weekend. This is crazy and amazing. It's like it just be like it's almost like a wake up and it's another show, right? We are plugged with Molly and Joe, along with my brother Zachariah, our co-host for this season. Um, my God, we're here. We're still here. We're still doing it. We still love what we're doing. We're still coming up with more and more information and the such. And that's what's amazing about what we're doing here. Of course, we have our topic of the day. And what's our topic of the day? We topic of the day is the causes and effects of emotional independence. What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? I don't know what that is. What would that? Exactly. That was that. What's that? That dead air, whatever they call it, or what have you.
Yeah. Uncomfortable silences.
Yeah. We don't need those in the land of radio, right? That's not
at all.
that's not good.
That's a dope. That's a dope digital shirt you got on.
Yo, I don't even know why the shirt is doing this. Like, oh, you know why? I know why. The shirt is green. How about that?
It's a Matrix shirt.
The shirt is green. Yes. Actually, I like it. I don't know. It seems weird. Seems out of the ordinary. But of course, we topic of the day, the cause effects of emotional independence. Paying homage, of course. We have three new people. We always try to have different people, although we might double back every now and again. But hey, it is what it is, right? And then, of course, current events. There's a lot going on when you talk about COVID, when you're talking about our national politics and stuff like that, our local politics and the such. So, what we're going to do is we're going to do what? Hey, Joe, talk to us. Matter of fact, hold on, time out. Joe hasn't been with us for a while, right, Zach?
Yeah, he was here. Just he's been off and on.
Off and on.
We missed him last week.
Right. So that's where I'm thrown off right here. You know what I'm saying? I usually come on, but I'm like, Joe hasn't been here. So you know what? Joe, kick us off, Joe. Go ahead, man.
All right. So here's what we're gonna do. We talked about today's show. We talked about the topic of the day, paying homage, our current events. The platforms that we are on, you must follow us on Amazon Music, Pandora, Stitcher, Podchaser, TuneIn, Reasons Podcast, Google Podcast, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Anchor.fm, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iMixCloud, iTunes Podcast, the eveningrushnetwork.com, and also on the Evening Rush Network app, which is available on iOS and Android.
All right. Joe, what you been up to, man?
I am a victim of the COVID clan. So I'll tell you that I'm just recovering from COVID-19. I'm pretty sure it was the Omicron variant because
the Omicron.
The Omicron, as most of us said, the Omicron variant. So I'm recovering from it. I'm feeling a lot better than I did last week this time, I tell you that. But it's at the point right now, like we were talking about earlier, it's going to get to everyone. And I think the quicker we get this over with, the quicker we can go on and move on to what we have to do in life,
What you been up to, Zach? Talk to me, Zachariah.
Just looking into this NFT thing right now. I don't know if y'all heard about what's going on in the virtual world. But
I heard a little bit. Give us a brief little something about it.
Well, it started out as a place for artists to sell their work digitally, and it's taken off into a whole new realm now. You have musicians and musical artists that are actually creating album covers with music attached to it now. There's just people selling artwork, digital art, music, all in the NFT world. Pretty soon it's going to actually, Travis Scott has an NFT where you could be playing Fortnite and the game will pause and turn into a concert, and he'll come out and perform like a 4 to 8 minute concert in the middle of your game, and you have no say so. And then poof, you're back to playing again. So there's all kind of things going on with what they're doing. They're going to eventually have an entire digital world where people are going to be living. To get a good concept of it, watch the movie Ready Player One. That's going to show you what it's going to be like in the future with the virtual world.
Okay. Actually, I've seen that movie, and I'm pretty, I like sci-fi like that. So,
Oh, that's going to be real life. It's not going to be sci-fi in a minute.
Well, a lot of the stuff that we sit there and claim to be sci-fi actually becomes real life, i.e., Star Trek. Beam Me Up Scotty had a cell phone. You know what I'm saying? So, a lot of that stuff do come to life.
The Jetsons,
right?
We're not high up in the sky yet, but
I'm still waiting for my flying car, brother. I'm still waiting for.
They got them. They ain't for sale yet. They were talking on video chat. They were video chatting like we doing now.
That's right.
They were doing all that.
Right. You're absolutely
right.
Working
from home.
You're absolutely right. Sitting there just video chatting and all that stuff. You know?
Yeah.
That's the original Zoom.
Yeah, for sure. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about our next topic, right? What our next topic is paying homage to our ancestors, right? We're gonna shoot right on to that. And in paying homage to our ancestors, what we do every week, we give the flowers to those that came before us and paved the way for everything that we do in our lives. And first up for us for paying homage to our ancestors is my main man. Yo, I can't believe Joe is back. Yes, Joe. COVID didn't take you out. Joe, you got it.
I survived. I'm a survivor.
Listen,
there you go.
Y'all see how my shirt is pixelated? I'm dodging this like it's the Matrix, brother. I'm telling you, man. Listen, I got people actually really close to me that's really like rooting for me to get it for some reason because I'm sitting here and they're like, yo, I can't believe you don't. Listen, I'm not going to talk about how I feel about things, but listen, I'm just dodging it. How's that?
Right. Yep.
And homage to our ancestors. Talk to me, Joe. Who you got this week?
Well, I'm stepping up to the plate. My ancestor we just recently lost a couple of weeks ago, Bishop Desmond Tutu. The late Bishop Desmond Tutu. Bishop Desmond Tutu was a South African bishop and theologian. He was known for his work in anti-apartheid and human rights activists. He was the Bishop of Johannesburg from 1985 to 1986 and the Archbishop of Cape Town from 1986 to 1996. I remember Bishop Tutu as one of those type of guys growing up. He was just somebody who was a peacemaker. He didn't have a strong stance on a lot of things, but he was very peaceful with how he did. Yes, apartheid was like the African form of inequality, and in some form you would consider that close to slavery back in Africa. And I remember growing up, Bishop Tutu was very strong. He was a strong supporter of anti-apartheid, and he also was one of those that was trying to get Nelson Mandela free from Africa as well. So I'm glad that he was a prime example of how to handle situations peacefully and calmly. And his methods will be missed. He was one of the good ones. He was one of the last of the Mohegans that actually handled things, had a high stance and power, and handled things with a calm and statured nature. So Bishop Tutu, you will be missed.
All right, paying homage to our ancestors is what we do right now, and this is the time when we give props and give them flowers to those that came before us. Because what we're going to do next week, we're going, those who make our ancestors proud. But this week, we pay homage to our ancestors. So, my man Zachariah, tell me who you paying homage to this week.
This week, giving props to Nipsey Hussle, American Ethiopian American, born in South Central LA, became a self-made hip hop legend of now since his death. He started out in the early to mid 2000s. His first mixtape, Slawsome Boy, that's what put him on the map. Basically, he sold that out of the trunk of his car and ended up getting eventually what became a nationwide following. Then he followed with that is Bullets Ain't Got No Names, and then the Marathon continues, and Crenshaw. That one, Jay-Z bought 100 copies of that mixtape at $100 a piece. He later on went to sell one of his mixtapes, I believe, for $1,000 a copy after that happened, after being counseled by Jay-Z, I believe. So we know him for Victory Lap. Most people don't recognize his earlier work until Victory Lap came out, which blew up after his death. It was nominated for Best Rap Album in 2019 at the Grammys, and he also won after his death 2 Grammys for Racks in the Middle and Higher, Best Rap Performance and Best Rap Song Performance categories. But also, this man lived up to his name. He was a true hustler at heart, and he taught people in the Black community how to use whatever you're good at to make money, and you don't need a handout. He didn't have a record label behind him in his early days. He made his success, just off of his grind, and the determination. He had that mindset, and that's what he always preached, even in his later music. And before his death, he came together and bought some land in the heart of South Central LA, a little shopping mall where he opened up his Marathon clothing store, and also a youth community center that taught, gave us place for kids to go after school and taught career and life skills for the youth in South Central LA to help them get off the streets and escape the holds of the system, basically, to not become a statistic. And he was a true gang member that actually came out of that lifestyle and taught people how to hustle your way to success, no matter where you live or where you come from. And I just want to give him props. The marathon does continue, Nipsey. And last point, he was bringing together, before he died, which some believe this is part of the conspiracy of how we lost him. He set up a meeting between the police chief and the head blood in South Central LA and himself. And they were supposed to meet was a week after he was shot and killed. And they were going to create a truce between the police and the Bloods and the Crips. And that's why there was a march after his death with the Bloods and Crips uniting. So shout out to this man. He was bigger than life, which is one of my favorite songs by him. Nipsey Hussle, you did your damn thing and you left a print in the world.
Well, we obviously know that. Let's give props to Nipsey Hussle. We know that because you went on a nice. And the funny part about what people don't understand about Zachariah is that a lot of these stories come from the heart because he's actually experienced it. A lot of these situations over there in LA, sometimes you can speak to to your truth and speak to your history. And it's kind of that's kind of cool if you ask me. That's why I don't mind listening to it. That's why I don't mind hearing it when you get into your little to your little
in
story.
my zone.
Yeah, to your zone.
Yes.
But who I got? Because realistically, I mean, I never met Crispus Addicts. You got people that you've met and you've been a part of, and they've been a real focal part of our history and whatnot. And that's kind of dope. Like the Tupac story, and then you got the Nipsey Hussle story, and then you got I think you said Kendrick Lamar as well, right? I think you had some runnings with Kendrick Lamar. And I think that just goes to show where you at in life. You understand what I'm saying? To be honest with you, you know what I mean? Because you've come across a few good men. You know what I mean? And that's no BS. You know what I'm saying? So I don't mind when you get into those little zones. So don't feel no way. You know what I mean? I don't mind when you get them zones because my ancestor, the who I'm paying homage to is Crispus Attucks, the one Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks immortalized as the first casualty of the American Revolutionary War. and the first African American hero. He was in the front line of a group, 50 patriots defying British troops when suddenly shots were fired. Chris was the first person shot and killed with 2 bullets in the chest in a historic event that became known as the Boston Massacre. 4 men died and 6 were wounded. 1 man died later from his wound. As an African American patriot, Crispus Attucks represents the 5,000 African American soldiers who fought for independent America. What's crazy is that I bring about Crispus Attucks' role in the American Revolution because I've recently started studying in a sense to where we were always in the front line. We were always the ones that were there front and center when it came down to many focal or many serious points in this country's existence. And we have to begin to be more patriotic when it comes down to our role in this country, period. You understand? So that's the reason why I bring up Crispus Attucks, because he listen, he just didn't want, as much as he didn't want to be a slave, he knew that he had to fight to give them reasons for him not to be a slave. You understand what I'm saying? Because he was an icon for the anti-slavery movement. He was fighting for his freedoms, all of that other stuff. You know what I mean? Because he was a slave and he fought for it and he became, and he got free. And in his freedom, he knew that he couldn't sit still in doing so. You understand what I'm saying? So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to one of the pioneers of what we're doing now. You understand what I'm saying? And a true patriot to what America is really about, and just one of the beginnings of why I feel that I need to be a little more patriotic when it comes down to our claim to American history. So shout out to Crispus Attucks. Yeah, pretty deep. But that goes in that comes from that 1619 stuff, y'all. I'm telling you, just be changing my whole thought pattern. But what we're going to do right now, we're going to go into one of our favorite segments. A lot of us, we appreciate it and whatnot. We appreciate this segment because it gives us time to go into what's going on in the news. Current events. So what we're going to do is Mayor Adams signs executive order to reform small business violations, giving small businesses a break from unnecessary fines and penalties. Mayor Adams, of course, is the new New York City mayor here in New York. Yes. Good. I don't know if that, because remember we was conflicted about his gunshots. We don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So we don't know if that gunshot was
I think those are shots of celebration.
That was a shot of celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a liquor shot. All right.
Yeah.
So Mayor Adams signs executive order to reform small business violations, giving small business a break from necessary fines and penalties. What do you think about that, Joe, being a native New Yorker?
We know that small businesses, the majority of them are minorities, people of color, and people of from other cultures, and to have, I think, lessening these penalties and needless fines help their businesses. So that's a great thing. If we were in an era right now where we would be open and be able to make as much as we were able to, this would be definitely helpful. But because of the fact that we're still in a pandemic, I think it does lighten the load a little bit. Like more like storefront places and, like I said, minority business owners that have storefronts, because these fines are unnecessary. Like, they're only doing it for less to small businesses. Like, they wouldn't fine big businesses like that, but, I remember at one point in time.
Or big businesses can handle those kind of fines and penalties.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
Can absorb those, maybe he's looking at it from a standpoint where, the big businesses, y'all can eat those fines and penalties, but the small business, not so much. Right, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I tip my hat to him because, I know it's early on in his seat. And, a lot of times when a politician gets into a seat, they forget about the little people that got them there.
Right.
And these small businesses are owned by minorities and blacks and the members of the community that don't usually get help. So like you said, those bigger businesses can handle those fines. It's like they own the buildings that they run in their business out of, whereas it's such a high overhead for the small business. You got to pay rent, you got to pay these fines, you got to pay this and that to get the legal fees taken care of. So definitely looking out for the little guy is a good move for a politician, a mayor of New York. I tip my hat to him.
Yeah, salute to him, and especially where people, got all in the tizzy about some wording. What I mean, I'm not even going to talk about that because I really feel like, yeah, you're right. Everyone gets fined. This impacts small business adversely, comparatively speaking. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what we're
Exactly.
speaking to. We're speaking to that
Exactly.
fact that whereas a big business, they can absorb those fines, and it's nothing. It's nothing to their bottom line. Whereas small businesses, they can't, they can't handle those same things. And I say the same thing with pricing as far as commercial pricing and stuff like that. When you're dealing with small businesses, they shouldn't have to deal with those commercial pricing that they might have for them big businesses. So it goes hand in hand. I get it, and I salute to him. And again, like I said, especially with what's been happening as far as some of the things that he said, as far as what was the wording? Some people are not, not equipped. What was the wording that he said?
Academically inclined or something like that. I don't know what the exact words were, but
Yeah, I don't remember the words exactly, but
low skill workers. There
low
we go.
skill, low skill workers. Me personally, I think he made a good point. It just came out wrong for a lot of people because he just kept it 100. You understand what I'm saying? Maybe he was just maybe he's emotionally independent.
All right. I mean, we're not. I mean, you look at society. We're, I won't say trained, but most of us are inbred as low skilled because the resources aren't there for us.
And that's what he was speaking to. So
I don't think it was an insult. I think it was more or less a statement.
Keeping it real.
People know, keeping it 100. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, Joe, Plessy versus Ferguson, pardon after 132 years. What's that about?
Well, Homer Plessy was a victim during the separate plus equal era in the 1890s. You could kind of say he was the Rosa Parks before Rosa Parks, the Clovette Colvin before Clovette Colvin. He sat on a train in Louisiana in a white-only section and refused to leave when a conductor ordered him to move to a rail car reserved for blacks. He was arrested and convicted, violating at a trial violating the Separate Car Act of 1890. So 1890, it took 132 years to realize that this man wasn't wrong for what he did.
Wow.
It's like we said yesterday, too little, too late. When somebody gets pardoned, it's almost like them saying, okay, we were wrong for making them guilty in the first place, but a lot of time has passed, so maybe so many people won't remember it.
Nah, this is a buffer. This is a buffer. They do things like this to buffer the rest of the news that show, okay, there's so many things going on. Okay, another black man got shot by a white cop. Okay, this is happening over here in the black community. Oh, but don't forget, hey, look, check out this case right here. He's this 132-year-old case. He's got pardoned for it now. He wasn't wrong. It's just a buffer because, there's so many things that are still going on. The work that he put in is still in. It hasn't had an effect today. It's still being, there's still violations, that didn't make any changes, that should have been changed by now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the pardon to me, like you said, it's just a buffer. It's just something to keep us thinking that we're still achieving and we're getting somewhere as a people and whatnot. When there should be mass changes, it shouldn't be just things such as, oh, we realized that he was pardoned. No, it should be mass pardonings all the way across the board. That's when you show me changes. You know what I'm saying?
It's
When
like,
you just 100 people and you said these 100 men who was accused of this, that, and the third, blah, blah, blah. He was accused of this back in those days. He was accused of that. All of them are pardoned. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's not give me one at a time, and let's not give me one first at a time, because that's what they keep doing. They give us a first here and there. Oh, he's the first one to be hired by, Morgan Stanley. He's the first to be running this section of such and such big major corporation. First. They sell us a bunch of firsts. They give us a bunch of pardons. and then exactly change all of the systemic BS that y'all give us. You know what I mean?
Right.
And one of these weeks, I want to break down the system. When we always
Yep.
talk about systemic oppression, we need to let people know what that system looks like,
That's
exactly
right.
what system is going against you, so that way they
That's right.
can acknowledge from left to right and straightforward what the system is doing against us. You understand what I'm saying? Because this is
Yeah.
part of that system to keep giving us first, to keep pardoning us way yonder. Like, oh, who might need to
But
who might
Molly,
get free today?
you
Right.
know why they gotta sprinkle it like that, right? You ever play Uno? You know, you gotta save certain cards for when you gonna need them.
Right.
You
That's
know
their
what I
draw
mean?
four. That's
Right.
their
They
draw.
gotta sprinkle
Wow.
it. They gotta sprinkle it in there. You know, for when the next flurry of cases come
We
up to
keep
show what's
going for
happening in this country.
it, and we
Yeah,
keep going for it, and we keep
exactly.
going for it. Yeah, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, listen, we know what it is. A bunch of firsts, a bunch of pardons ain't gonna do us nothing. Let's get it on. You know what I mean? All right. So basically, Canada. I don't know nothing about this, Joe. Canada pledges 31.5 billion to settle fight over indigenous child welfare system. What is that about, Joe?
Well, they announced what would reach one of the most largest settlements in Canada's history. They're paying 31.5 billion to fix the nation's discriminatory child welfare system and compensate the indigenous people harmed by it. So it's similar to the child welfare system that's here. They're putting their money where their mouth is, per se. I've always admired the country of Canada because they're one of the major countries that look at education, look at health, and they realize that it's something that should be offered to everybody. There's
Okay.
no price on that,
Okay.
unlike this country, which is big business as usual. But Canada is one of those places that you could go and they're like, this is offered to everybody across the board. There's no fees, there's no penalties. So looking at something like this, when you look at how most child welfare systems are, they're going to make sure the kids, especially for the indigenous Canadians that were there, they're going to make sure that the families are taken care of. They're going to make sure that it's easier for families to adopt. They're going to make sure they have the funds to do that. It's
All
not
right.
about parenting. It's not about poverty. It's about making sure that the children in indigenous families are affected, to make sure that they're taken care of. They're giving them the better resources. That's one of the biggest systems here is the child welfare system here, and a lot of cities take advantage of that, in the inner city alone.
All right.
So to see
Shout out
Canada
Shout
doing
out
it,
to Canada. Shout out to Canada for that, man.
they're taking the steps that America should be taking. So hopefully America is looking in the background saying, let's
Yeah,
see if this might work for us.
that's a piece of news that's basically allows us to take a look within. But being that we don't control anything, how far can we really look, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for enlightening us about that, Joe. I want to go to the biggest story of them all this past week, this past 2 weeks, the past 3 weeks, past 4 weeks, is coronavirus, right? So CDC guidelines allowing healthcare workers to work even though they have tested positive for COVID. Can I get that little screenshot there that I had? The little picture. I believe it's a little picture I had. I don't know. I'm not sure we can get it up there. But on it is yeah. So it said the CDC has now cut quarantine by half and will allow you to go to work if you are asymptomatic, meaning still have COVID but no symptoms. Just to be clear, you can go to work with COVID but fired if you're not vaxxed.
Make that make sense for me.
Yeah, none of it makes sense. And then also, and Mercy Medical Center. Now, I mean, listen, this is all things. If you're on Spotify or anything, you can't see this, but this is posted all around the hospital. It basically says because you are critical staff, per CDC guidelines, you are allowed to work even with a positive test or high risk exposure of COVID. So
Crazy.
listen, bro,
So people with COVID treating people with COVID and treating people that don't have it that are in the hospital, giving a risk to high exposure than usual.
What I think what they're betting on is the timeline of when you have it. they say after 5 days of having it, the symptoms aren't contagious, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that there's still a chance that people can get it. But that's what the CDC is banking on. They're banking that the transmission between others after those 5 or 6 days isn't as powerful or isn't relevant at all.
Well, here's another. There was a tweet that popped up and said, within the past 48 hours, Biden has admitted that the virus can't be stopped. CNN admitted that masks are useless, and now the CDC has admitted that PCR tests are a fraud. The wheels are flying, they're starting to come off. ABC News says the newly updated CDC guidelines don't require testing at the end of isolation because PCR tests can stay positive for up to 12 weeks. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky tells ABC News.
All right, listen. We could talk about COVID all day. I just want everybody to stay healthy and informed. Get more information. Stay informed. Do not go for the okie doke. And with that, we're going to take a quick break and come back with you know what I mean, because I like this one. We're going to talk about it. We ain't going to speak about it, but we want you to understand the message real quick. But we're going to come back from this short message from the Evening Rush Network. Peace.
Looking to podcast shows and do not know where to start? The Evening Rush Network can help you with that. Call us at 929-441-2417 or email us at theeveningrushnetwork@gmail.com for dates and prices. We got you for all your podcast needs. The Evening Rush Network. Tune in, subscribe, and share.
Wow. And we are back. Of course, we're on the Evening Rush Network. We are also sponsored by Baller, my favorite place to be, Big Apple Leadership Academy for the Arts. We are also on Instagram. That's Instagram. That's at Plugged MJ. That's at Plugged MJ. We on Facebook. We on Spotify. We on all of those platforms we named earlier. And this is one of our new segments. We're trying to fit it in there. We're trying to get it in there, but we get this flowing about the current events because we have a few more topics in current events that we didn't even touch, like Antonio Brown's situation. But I think we could touch on that next week because it's give it a week and see how it plays out. It's about Corona, some new variant. The new variant. Ooh. You know what I mean?
So it's a mix between the flu and Corona.
Corona and the flu.
Isn't it already a mix? Don't you already get flu-like symptoms when you get the coronavirus? But miss me with that. So we're gonna go with our next segment. You know what I mean? Real quick. Throw that up there. So this is a quote that you're not seeing on Spotify and anywhere else that might not have any video reception. Dr. Amos Nelson Wilson. He has a quote saying, "If you want to understand any problem in America, you need to focus on who profits from that problem, not on who suffers from the problem," which is usually us as a people. You understand? And who profits from it is usually the wealthy. It's usually the
elite.
Exactly.
So if you want to understand any problem in America, that's a good tip right there. Focus on who profits from it. You know what I mean? And then you'll understand what the problem is right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's pretty much basic for any systematic structure.
Yep.
Anybody who controls the situation, they have the power to make it even for everybody else. So that's what Dr. Wilson was pretty much trying to state.
And that also leads into our topic for the day because it deals with mental health. It deals with understanding these same scenarios where you understand who profits from our emotional ruts, right? All right. So health or wealth, right? That's a good question. Health or wealth. The causes and effects of emotional independence. Okay. All right. So today, it's a little deep, right? Because we've sat here and we was in our pre-meeting and we was breaking it down and we was trying to figure it out. And when we broke it down, it's so many layers. It's so many layers to what's going on here. So talk to me, Joe. Give me a definition of what the emotional independence. What is emotional independence, first and foremost, Joe?
Well, emotional independence is defined as a type of inner resilience that lets you know you can meet, solve, or be with any circumstance you face. It means building your sense of self on your own without depending on others to make you happy or tell you who you should be.
So emotional independence is a positive, is what you're saying. I mean, like, what do you think, Joe? What do you think, Zach? Zach,
Well,
emotional independence is a positive, no? Real quick.
I
I
mean, yes, absolutely. I believe so. I mean, it takes emotional independence to be able to navigate through the problems in life. If you let stress overtake you or little things sway you this way or that way, then what are you, like a leaf in the wind? You can't stand on your own 2 feet.
I
Mm-hmm.
piggyback off of what Zach said. It's choices. It's a choice that you have, and you're the solver of that choice. You don't have to depend on anybody else decision. You can be comfortable with what you've done, and you don't have to worry about the feedback or the backlash if it was a negative one, because it's your choice, and there's nobody judging you or brushing you on what you said or did.
Why would we want to have emotional independence, though? What are the effects of its acquisition? Like, why do we need emotional independence? Is it a need? Like we say, why do we need it? Is there a need for emotional independence? And once we receive it, what are the effects of its acquisition? Like why? Like what? Why do we
Well,
get?
in a society where everything is dependent on other people, you're dependent on people's opinions and feedback, and you're dependent on what they say and what they do. Emotional independence is very needed because it breaks the trends. It helps you figure out your life without having other people in your ear telling you what you should and should not do, or second guessing yourself and your choices. So it's very important if you want to live life on your own terms.
But Zach. So I mean, like, because for me, what it's sounding like is that like someone who goes within themselves that much, where it's like, you know what, I can meet anything, solve anything, be with any circumstance, and then self of your own, depend on others, without depending on others, no dependence, meaning you don't want to depend on others. It sounds like you have trust issues.
Yes, to a degree, I would agree. But some of the greatest leaders the world have ever known had trust issues, and that's because when you become into that mental state of mindset where you have to be the leader, you have to have that emotional stability to be able to see things that other people can't, to be able to deal with situations that other people might break or fall under the pressure of. You have to have a certain trust in yourself, and you might not see that in other people that don't have that strength, or that don't have the loyalty that you have to yourself or to the cause. So yes, it is. But then at the same time, is that always a good thing when we're talking about a community or in your own home? So yes, for certain roles it's a strength, and in other parts that trust issue could be work against you as well. It's the catch-22.
So I mean, it's a powerful tool to have. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm gathering, right? Because we talk about emotional independence being generated with intrinsic motivation, meaning it's internal. It's something
Yeah.
that internally you're motivated. You self motivated. You know what I mean? But is there a con to that? Is there like, because what we would like to talk about, is there a catch-22 in this situation? You know what I mean? Because we want to be emotionally independent, but then also you're saying that we need to build some type of trust as the same in the same sense. You know what I mean? So how can you be internal and external at the same time?
Well, with the people that are closest to us,
Hold
those
on,
trust.
give me a second. Give me a second. I was like, I'm going to target to Joe that one. Let me
Okay.
Joe, tackle that one real quick.
Well, I'm going to speak from my own personal experience. When you're becoming a age of man, young adult, that's when you start experiencing that type of emotional experience. You're doing things that you normally wouldn't do. You're experiencing how life and how system works. But you also know in this environment, in certain environments, you have to play the hand that you're dealt. You know, you could be emotionally independent, but there are times when you can't use that to your advantage because of how the system is set up. And I know for me, when I was younger, I considered myself to be emotionally independent. However, there were times when I shouldn't have been. Because of a job that I worked at where they didn't require it, or if it had to help me get somewhere that I need to do, I had to learn how to play the game. So there are ways where you can control that or learn as you get older. Okay, I can show my emotional independence, but I have to learn when to use it when it works best for me. Is there are times when you're old, when you're not, it's not necessarily meant to be that way because of the system or the position that you're in.
So speaking to the catch-22, right? Because some people would think that in our community we have difficulty building emotional independence, right? What is that difficult? Because we don't have trust in our community. So a lot of people, like me, I like to say that this show is one of those shows that could say that they emotionally independent. You know what I mean? I could say that Joe is emotionally independent. I could say Zachariah is emotionally independent. But I think it's yeah. Well, a question that was
It
made.
can be. If you're outspoken, you have emotional
What
independence.
was the question? What was the question?
The question was, is emotional independence, can it be intimidating?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, it can be intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're an outspoken person and you have no filter, as they say, that's emotional independence. And
Remember
a lot of
that,
people
producer.
look
Remember
at
that,
that
producer.
as scary because,
Producer.
go ahead.
No, I said remember that, producer.
Yes, a lot of people look at that as being scary because you're not that. They don't know what's going to come out your mouth. They don't know what you're going to say to kind of blow up or make a scene uncomfortable. It may be the truth, but it might not be the right time to say it, or just find other ways to say it. You could be emotionally independent.
Zachariah, what you got to say?
I mean, among humans and among animals, we have alphas and then you have the non-alphas. And sometimes the alphas are intimidating. And like Joe mentioned, you might be speaking truth and not everybody can handle the truth, and if you're emotionally independent, you might be able to swallow that pill and that gives you motivation for strength, whereas somebody else, it breaks them down.
So the question is, for both of you, how do we strengthen the emotionally weak without the presence of trust? Meaning, we can't trust them, but we want to strengthen them. We don't want, they don't trust us, but we want to strengthen them.
Well,
right? We don't trust them, they don't trust us. We want to strengthen their mental.
Can I answer that? I think sometimes, I was reading something, in business about creativity and how leaders promote creativity amongst their team, and it's by walking through example. And one key note was that you have to show confidence in your team members. It's like even the player that's not so good, you got to pass him the ball sometimes to show him that he could do it too, or else he's going to constantly be that underperforming player.
Give him the floor and sense of
and you notice this with Shaolin monks. They'll take a 3-year-old boy and have him conducting the class of adults, and the adults will take it seriously as if they were the sensei.
But wait, give us
build his confidence.
Let's go. Yeah. Can you be emotionally be the most dangerous one in the room?
Yeah, depending on how you use that emotional weakness. If it's a breakdown, absolutely, because that breakdown can lead to a volatile front, a physical front. So, yeah, that emotional weakness, that's a form of being. When you're emotionally weak, you're frantic. You're like a rat in the corner. You'll strike out at anyone and anything. And most emotional weakness leads to a physical strength or a violent breakdown. And yes, you can be dangerous from that, because if you don't have control of your emotions, it turns into.
But the question was, and it still remains, how do we strengthen the emotionally weak without the presence of trust? And what Zachariah is saying is that we teach them early, right? So in teaching them early, we don't allow them to be weak later. So I guess the emotionally weak, we allow that to be something that's done as a child. That's a childhood feeling or what have you, because as you become older, we want you to be emotionally independent of all things. And Zachariah, I think you can speak to this, is that actually that's our upbringing in a sense, because remember, those, like you was talking about the Shaolin monks and whatnot, and they would have young men teach. And guess what we were doing? We was young men teaching, because I mean, you saw me, I was a teenager teaching the congregation and basically teaching them about their lives and such, and that
one of my first teachers, wiser before your year.
Yeah, so maybe one of the ways is to strengthen it is to, like you said, baptism under fire in a sense, right?
Believing in them. You got to give them some belief in them. See, and another thing, mistakes have to be told that it's okay, because you grow your most from your mistakes. It's only failure when you give up. So if we have to teach this to the youth and even adults that may not be emotionally independent or strong. You have to let them know, look, don't see, we're in a society that makes you emotionally dependent. You go online and everybody wants to fake and be somebody else on social media because there's a fad, because there's a trend, because of what is acceptable to us, and everybody wants to fit in. You know, I read a quote that says, would you rather be successful or satisfied? And success is determined by other people.
Well,
Whereas,
that goes to our question of that other question that we got.
hear the ending of it. But satisfaction is determined by your own mind, heart, and soul. So which is better?
Good question.
You know?
Good question. That was a good question. You stumped me real quick.
Are you leaving that for us to answer? Or are you tell everybody out in radio land and on the podcast world to?
I mean, go ahead.
Answer it for themselves, because I'm actually answering it for myself.
Right.
I'm taking it personal. I'm gonna answer it for myself and move on with that one. He said we help them by introducing the idea of goal setting. Remember that it requires internal motivation. The individual has to desire to help change growth. Right. But when the system is against you, how do we make it look good? Right. So we got to start putting it. You know what I'm saying? We got to make emotional independence something that people are seeking, the same way they might seek independence in itself. You know what I mean? You say, oh, I want to be independent. You know, I want to be free. Okay, we are free in a sense, right? We're sitting there feeling like we're free. We got our apartments, we got our homes, we're able to have children, all of these different things and whatnot. But what allows us to be better? What allows us to go that extra mile? That is that emotional independence, because with everything that's against you, you're still going to sit there and trudge on. You're still there going to and keep moving, right? Because what the definition is as a type of inner resilience that lets you know you can meet, solve, and be with any circumstance you face. You got to read that over and over again, and you'll understand what it really means for yourself.
Yep.
It means building your sense of self on your own without depending on others. You know what I mean?
I mean, you never know how strong you are until strength is your only option. And for some people who haven't been through those life-threatening situations, then maybe you don't know what it's like, you know, and they don't believe that they have that strength.
So now when you look at it, it sounds so harsh, right? Depend on us. I don't depend on nobody. I don't depend on nobody. It's my own, this and the third. So it sounds a little selfish. It said, does the presence of emotional independence mean the absence of vulnerability? Meaning, should you be able to trust? Because some people saying that you can't really trust when you know, because that's what it's basically reading out to you. But should you be able to trust?
Doesn't it take emotional independence to be able to show your vulnerabilities, though? Because someone to put themselves in a vulnerable position and not fear the consequence of that, you have to be pretty secure with yourself.
They are sound in their emotional independence, because they're like, listen, this is me, this is my own, this is what I'm doing. Okay, I get that, Joe.
Well, I was gonna say something very similar. I was gonna say you're not fearful of consequence or anything into it, because you know that the strength comes from within you. You know that the independence lies within you.
So you can allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, you can determine if it's too much or too little.
Because you're in control. So emotional independence is about controlling of oneself, one's spiritual being, in a sense, I guess you would say.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Being comfortable being yourself, being comfortable in your own skin, in your own shoes, not feeling like you need to impress anybody else.
Right. Not looking on the justification of other people, not looking at their questions,
achievements,
achievements, and saying, "Oh, I need to be like this." No,
that's
you
right.
realize you have to build your own, and it's a real deep topic, and it's one of those things that it seems easy because we should all have it, but why hasn't it been unlocked yet? Because we don't live in a system that provides us emotional independence. Because
I think we ride the wave of emotional independence in times, like, you know,
circumstances.
Right, we're circumstantial in our emotional independence, you know, and maybe that's a good thing. I mean, I don't know, because it says, we have a bullet point says emotional independence is generated with intrinsic motivation, meaning, you know, internal motivation, meaning we want to be emotionally independent. You will want to, because
and it has to be in you.
Right, it has to be in you to want it, right? And say motivations are intrinsic, changes in circumstances can and often does adversely affect progress towards goals. right? Because when because it's outside, people from the outside is bothering what you already know you need to do, which is so great of a point. You know what I mean? So it says you push towards progress regardless of changes in external factors. So that's why when you're emotionally independent, it doesn't matter what the external is doing. You know what I mean? You're
That's
still
right.
going to go forth with your goal. And that's like
Right.
our show. You understand what I'm saying? No
Yeah.
matter how many likes, no matter how many shares, week by week, what we're doing is putting out this information, because what's going to happen is at some point in time, there's going to be a young man, a young woman, somebody, an old man, an old lady that's going to look at what we're doing and be changed for their life. You know what I mean? So, you know, and that goes into it says one of our writers says, "Nah, it's those people who can't define themselves without identifying who they are to someone else. That's when things go wrong. The definition of self is dependent."
Yeah. Yeah, and that's when you're living your life to trying to please everybody.
Yeah. I be telling this person they need to write in more often. They be fine.
Is the definition of self in this instance, is it because you're depending on what other people say? Because if you weren't depending on what other people said, you have self-independence. Where does the definition of self, where does the dependency come from in self? Like, you have to be, you're not depending on others, you're depending on you. But
right. So because I don't want to, because we listen, we broke down emotional independence, right? I think we gave everybody an idea of what emotional independence is, the choices, you can juggle it back and forth, right? Because we want to go, because remember how we started off is health or wealth, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where that's where the emotional independence allow you to choose between what's going to be for you, what's not going to be for you, right? So it says, what is the correlation between financial independence and emotional independence? That's a good, Joe, you want to start that one off?
Okay. We have, that's somebody's phone in the background?
No, it's not mine.
Oh, okay.
No, that.
So,
someone's calling in.
Oh, we have a caller. All right.
Because I was doing too much typing and I couldn't get everything out I wanted to say. So the point that I'm making, Joe, and everybody else on this platform, the point that I'm making is there are people who believe that they are emotionally independent. You can't tell them otherwise. And so they move about life as though that's the position they're in. However, they lack the ability to define who they are without attaching their relationship to somebody else. So it's like, so my name is Jada. Obviously, this is Jada, right? I'm Jada. I can't just say, I am Jada, the mathematician who does X, Y, and Z, that runs this, that runs that. I have to say, I am Jada, the mother of Bam Bam. I am Jada, the mother of Amaya. I am Jada, the teacher of so-and-so, the wife of so-and-so, the daughter of so-and-so, the brother, sister, whatever. They have no self-definition. And so while they believe that they're emotionally independent because they think that they're setting goals and pursuing those goals, independent of those external factors, the external factors like the husband, the wife, the sister, the brother, the niece, the nephew, the aunt, the uncle, independent of those factors, they have no definition. So when those factors change, when family members fall out with each other, when friends fall out with each other, when coworkers are no longer there, when all of those external factors are now removed, now we end up into this place where I'm extremely weak and vulnerable because I didn't take the time to recognize that vulnerability in myself prior to the removal of those external factors. This is why I'm saying it needs to be intrinsic. You cannot be emotionally independent until you're able to say who you are independent of everybody and everything around you. That's what I'm trying to say. And that was just too much to say.
We know what you're trying to say.
Well, that goes with the cliche that leaders are born, and not made. You know what I mean? If it's not in you, then yeah, you're gonna need that support from everybody else to help validate you.
Truth. That is the absolute truth. And I say this thing on a regular basis. I tell people all the time, I am gifted to teach. No one has taught me how to do this, and I don't know how to teach other people how to do it. I don't. Like, this is my God-given gift. Right? Yeah. And people need to understand that you may want a thing, but it may not be necessarily your calling. So you got to figure out who you are and what is meant for you. And when you get that, that's when you're truly going to become independent.
And that's
Let me get off the phone. I'm going to let y'all do y'all thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bye.
yeah. Thank you, caller. You
You're
can call
welcome.
back anytime. We enjoyed that.
Yes.
No problem. Bye.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good point. Very good point.
Good point.
Well,
And
I totally
it
understand.
was a winded point.
Well,
Yeah.
I totally understand, and I agree.
It was a fresh air wind because
Yeah,
we hardly ever get a caller. You know what I'm
right.
saying?
So we need
So
this caller to call in every time they're on the show to bring in their point because they can bring us back to where we need to be. So I totally agree, but I look at it as when somebody is feeding off of a dependency from somewhere else, or they're using other people to claim their independence. That's not an independence in self. That's an independence, and that's just them putting on a front or putting a name behind who they are. But like you said, Jada, you said that once all that stuff is done, the strength is finding their own independence, because when they discover that it's not there anymore, can you really call it independence? No, it's worn out. Its time is done. And now the challenge really begins. Where do you find that independence from? Do you go back to those others and say, hey, I've been leeching off of your name and your title for so long. How do I build my own? Or hopefully
Well,
you will take within
well,
that
well,
time.
well, well. The funny part is life is that way, and that's where unity comes in. There because at the end of the day, we do latch on to one another. You understand what I'm saying?
I think it has a lot to do with how we were raised also. Who'd you have around you? I mean, we came up watching Bruce Lee, and listening to Bob Marley, you know what I mean? And people that were free thinkers and just pulled strength from
But
inside,
but
you know?
so now when you talk about emotional independence, because this is we're closing out, we in our witching hour, as they would say, and whatnot, and we looked at the choice between health or wealth, right? That's part of the topic as well, the choice between health or wealth. That's like example, COVID versus your job. You know what I'm saying? Meaning, get the COVID vaccine or lose your job. Athletes playing through injuries or lose their job. That's the Antonio Brown situation.
Mhm.
Um, keeping mental health issues, meaning you might be bugging out in your head, but you'll keep it to yourself in order not to lose face over on your job or within your community, especially in the Black community, because you don't want
Right.
nobody pointing the finger at you. So these are the choices that's made through now. And the best choice about both of these things, the health or the wealth, the COVID versus your job, is your emotional independence. Those allow you to make the tough choices. But when you think about it, when you put that money up there, you know what I mean? When you put money on the board, what y'all think?
A lot of people give in when it comes to that money, and it's not necessarily for like the love of money, but you got to pay your bills, your family might depend on you. So that's a tough situation, but it takes a really strong independent person to stand up for their beliefs when their livelihood is threatened.
And that's more or less the case for no matter how much money you're making. If you're used to living life a style and the system tells you, oh, you got to have this amount to live, you're going to look at your lifestyle and say, well, people don't outweigh the pro and cons. People to make the choice that's good, where they're going to live comfortably because that's all they know. But like
Well,
for those who are emotionally independent, rather, they would say there'll always be opportunities for me to excel, or the money doesn't mean everything in the world, and they will take that choice to look for something different.
But now,
yeah,
when you look at guys,
I think that's true, and not everybody is gonna feel the same way about those situations. Because personally, I believe everything is a choice. Whether you threaten my livelihood, whether you threaten to take away my family, when it comes to certain beliefs that I have, I will not compromise. I've been in situations where that has been tested, where my life has been on the line. And until you have a mind made up, which is the most powerful force in this world, short of God or whatever you consider the higher power, for me, that is the deciding factor of my emotional independence, what I believe in and what I'm willing to die for or sacrifice everything for. So for some people, that money might not mean nothing. For whatever is your anchor might not mean nothing. Your
But
anchor
like,
has to be
but like,
inside your true beliefs in self.
but like one of our writers that wrote is like they'll put their life on the line, but not their kids, because you have kids now. So when you think about it, you
Yeah.
sit there and be like, all right, I'll go in the street and I'll be a soldier about it, but would you put your kids out in the street with you? And I think there's some people that will choose that, and then I guess they're a little, salute to them, right? They'll choose to like, listen, we all out here, we all out here struggling together. You understand what I'm saying? We all, because it's like them doomsday people. You know what I'm saying? When they be like, oh, okay, we about to go into the mountains and hunker down because we're waiting for the apocalypse to happen. They take their kids right along with them. It's still a decision, and then remember, yes, like I said, you're still emotionally independent because you still allow yourself to make the choices necessary for your life. So I guess you can't say that you're not emotionally independent when you make any one of these tough choices, but it's the matter of fact, understand that you still have to make that choice with
Right.
no and make that choice. You know what I mean? And making those choices allow you to step into the realm of being emotionally independent. You know what I mean? Like athletes playing through injuries. That's a decision to make. You understand what I'm saying? Because you can either play with the injury and hurt yourself further, or you can take your stance and say, no, I'm not playing with that injury and go and go from there.
Well, there's a quote that says, "Nobody can walk on your back unless you bend over." So it's up to me whether I let someone have that power or that control over me. And they give me an ultimatum, I don't have to bend to your rules. I could do what I want to do at the end of the day. And that then determine on what the outcome is going to be. Am I willing to suffer the consequences or not? So when you're talking about emotional independence, are we just talking about, in this case, with his finances, financial, and the boundary between financial and emotional independence? We're not talking about making a decision, whether you just are stressed out or not stressed out of a situation, but whether you're willing to sacrifice your financial dependence for your emotional independence, right?
Mm, that's a good question. I mean, a lot of us has the reason why this probably came up is because of COVID vaccines and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah,
I still chose my path. Nothing. Yeah, it is quite
it
possible
is.
to have financial independence and emotional independence
That's
because
right.
what we broken down today for me, like what we broken down is that they can actually be two separate things. No, Joe?
Yes.
I agree. And there are a lot of people who don't see the consequences or what consequences there are because it balances each other. You could have both. You could be emotionally independent and make sacrifices. You can, because if you realize that the sacrifice is not as bad as people make it to be, or if something that you can live with, then
But
it's not a negative sacrifice. It's
but
going to
then it just goes up into the definition of what emotional independence is, because some people get caught up in the word and emotional independence. Ooh, what does that mean? I'm emotionally independent from everything. No, you're not closed off from nothing. Like it says, it's a type of inner resilience that lets you know you can meet, solve, and be with any circumstances you face. It means building a sense of self on your own without depending on others to make you happy or tell you who you should be. So let you know you can make the decision. Is it COVID versus your job? Are you going to get the vaccine or are you going to keep your job? That's emotionally that once you make that decision, you're emotionally independent. Athletes playing through injuries. If you're going to play with the injury or not, you're emotionally independent. Don't allow anybody to tell you you're not independent emotionally just because you have to choose between health or wealth.
right.
Hmm. Hmm.
Absolutely. I
Yeah, I
agree.
think that also boils down to the entrepreneurial mindset, because even if you work for someone else, an entrepreneurial mind will be like, hey, I can make it happen regardless.
And it leads to a sense of emotional independence, right? So you
Yes,
want to,
yeah.
so if you want to avoid that choice, that thing where you're saying, am I choosing financial independence over my emotional independence? You know what I mean? Or if my financial independence over my morals, because that's what happens. Because your emotional independence is never wavering because it's something that's about you, right? So now what you're thinking about is you're choosing the finances over the morals.
Right.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying? So, that's why
And
being an entrepreneurship leads to a sense of total emotional independence. I
Yeah.
think there's a totality to it. I think you can't really get there until you reach a point where finances isn't something others dictate.
Right. It's not the dictation. Like I said, if you realize you don't need that to survive, your independence is gonna be, you're gonna have it regardless, because you know that there are not factors or there are not strengths or weaknesses that'll guide you from your decision.
Yes,
So
that is an assumption.
right.
Yes. So, this was a very, very good topic, man. And I actually learned a lot, just by talking about it. Of course, we're sponsored by Baller, Big Apple East County for the Arts. We're closing out here. Anything you got to say, Joe, towards the topic? I mean, because we also was talking about the influence of media, music, movies, television, news, etc., on emotional independence. But I think we touched on everything we need to touch on. So let's close out here.
Yes, and save us towards our next portion of it, which we'll consider next week, where we'll be talking about health in this form as well. But just to let people know that you can develop independence on your own. You don't need the strength of others. You don't need the support or the influence of others to prove you're emotionally independent or not. So just also, look at yourself and see what you can do, and don't be fearful of what may come of your choices.
Yes, mental health in the Black community. That's next week, and that's where we lead. And like, if you notice, this was almost like the part one to what we're going to do next week. And we're going to probably bring in some of these same factors, emotional, the emotional independence and all that stuff, because that was actually a term that I actually learned today, in a sense. You know what I mean? Emotional independence. Like, oh, okay, I didn't know I was that. So that's a great thing. You know what I mean? Zachariah, close us out.
Just in relation to what the show stands for, this is an important factor because we live in a society that, with all the systemic oppression going on and everything that's meant to keep us in a small mindset, we have to realize that emotional independence is very important to grow as a people and within a community that's being suppressed. So it is very important. Take heed to the notes that were mentioned today. We will expand further on the factors that lead to whether we do or we don't have emotional independence in next week's show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And with that being said, man, I hope we gave you a guys piece, a jewel or two. You know what I mean? You were plugged in with Molly and Joe and our brother Zachariah. You can tune us out right now. You can keep us plugged in. You know what I mean? Keep us in there. Keep us in there. Keep us in your head, because you'll do better in life by that. Trust me. You know what I'm saying? Because I definitely keep these brothers in my mind. You know what I mean? And all their good words and whatnot. You know what I mean? Be able to stand with them every week on Thursdays. I gotta stay sharp. So with that being
mental
said,
warriors.
yes, exactly. Mental warriors. Mental warriors. You know what I mean? And with that being said, man, thanks everybody. Thanks again. The Evening Rush Network. Plug with Molly and Joe. Peace.